All right, today we're going to zoom way in to uncover one of the most amazing processes in all of biology, the secret life of a cell. We're going to explore the master plan that literally governs how things grow, how they repair, and how life itself continues, the cell cycle. I mean, just stop and think about that for a second. Every single living thing, from a massive whale in the ocean to you, we all started out as just one tiny cell. So how on earth do you get from one cell to trillions? Well, the answer is this incredible coordinated dance of growth and division. This is how it all works. This is the loop that makes growth and repair possible. You have a parent cell, it gets bigger, it copies everything inside it, and then it splits into two brand new daughter cells. And those two cells can then go on and do the exact same thing. It's a simple idea, but it's the foundation of, well, everything. But here's the thing. It's not some random, chaotic free-for-all. Oh no. This is a highly organized process. It follows a super precise sequence of events. So let's take a look at the official rulebook that pretty much every dividing cell has to follow. The key word here is sequence. It's a coordinated process. A cell doesn't just split in half whenever it feels like it. It has to perfectly, and I mean perfectly, duplicate all of its DNA, grow to the right size, and only then, when everything is absolutely ready, does it divide to create two perfect copies. And you know what's kind of wild? It's how a cell actually spends its time. So if you look at a typical 24-hour cycle for a human cell, the actual division part, that's called the M phase, that only takes about an hour. That means a whopping 95% of its life is spent just getting ready for that one big moment. And this master plan, it's not a one-size-fits-all kind of deal. While one of your cells takes a whole day to go through the cycle, a simple little yeast cell can do the whole shebang in just 90 minutes. So the timeline can change dramatically depending on what you are. Okay, so if 95% of the cycle is just preparation, what in the world is the cell doing during all that time? Let's dive into that long preparatory phase called interphase and see how a cell gets ready for its big day. You know, for a long time, scientists called this the resting phase because, they'd look under a microscope and it didn't seem like much was going on. But wow, were they wrong. We now know it's the total opposite of resting. Interphase is this period of intense activity, major growth, and, most importantly, the critical task of copying its entire genetic blueprint. Interphase itself is broken down into three smaller steps. Think of it like a project plan. First up is the G1 phase, where the cell just grows and does its normal cell job. Then comes the really crucial part, the S phase. S is for synthesis, and that's when it makes a complete copy of its DNA. And finally, in the G2 phase, it does some final growth and makes all the proteins it's going to need to actually split. Okay, here's a little detail that can be kind of confusing, so let's clear it up. During that S phase, the amount of DNA inside the cell literally doubles. But, and this is the tricky part, the number of chromosomes stays the same. So how is that possible? Well, it's because each chromosome is now made of two identical sister copies that are stuck together. It's like you take a book and photocopy every single page, then clip the copies to the originals. You have twice as much paper, but you still only have one book title. So, after all that meticulous preparation, all that growing, all that DNA copying, it's finally time for the main event. All that hard work during interphase has been leading up to this one short, dramatic, and unbelievably important finale, the M phase. And just remember how quick this is. In a human cell, this whole grand performance, this big split, is all over in about an hour. It's fast, it's efficient, and it's perfectly choreographed to make sure each new cell gets a flawless set of chromosomes. The M phase really has two major parts. First, the nucleus itself has to divide. That's called karyokinesis. It's where those copied chromosomes get separated into two perfect little piles. And that's followed immediately by cytokinesis, which is when the rest of the cell, the cytoplasm, pinches in the middle and splits in two, creating two totally separate daughter cells. But hang on a second. What about all the cells that don't need to divide, right? It turns out the cell cycle has a kind of exit ramp for cells that need to take a break from this constant division, either for a little while or maybe forever. And yeah, the reality is that not every single cell in your body is constantly going through this cycle. Some of them have done their job, and they're just going to hang out for the long haul. And others are basically just on standby, waiting for a signal to jump back in. So this exit ramp leads to a state we call G0, or the quiescent stage. Now, it's super important to understand that inactive here only means it's not dividing. These cells are still very much alive, they're metabolically active, they're doing their specialized jobs, they just aren't preparing to multiply anymore. So who are these cells taking a break? Well, think about some of the most specialized, hardworking cells in your body, like your heart cells or a lot of your nerve cells. They enter G0 and pretty much stay there for good. But other cells, like your liver cells, they can hang out in G0 but then get called back into the cycle if, say, you have an injury and need to repair that tissue. And that kind of brings us to our final thought here. We've seen that this whole cell cycle is an incredibly precise, super regulated process, right? With 95% of its time dedicated to just careful preparation. That really shows you just how important it is to get every single step right. And it makes you wonder, what happens to us when this master plan, this secret life of a cell, goes completely off script?
If you liked any point, please hit like. If you liked multiple points, leave a comment. And if you want more informative points, subscribe and turn on the bell button.